Hi everyone, we're in chapter 21 of Del Toro Moon by Darby Carshot. Matt, someone shook me. Hard. Matt. I jerked awake, confused as all get out. Dad? My tongue didn't want to work. For a second, I wondered why he was getting up in the middle of the night. Get dressed. Meet us outside. Hurry. He bolted from my room and yelled for Ben to saddle the horses. Footsteps echoed up and down the hall. Heart thundering in my chest, I threw back the covers and scrambled out of bed. I dropped every article of clothing twice and managed to pull my t-shirt out on inside out. Boots! Where are my stupid boots? I snatched them up from under the bed, stomped my feet into them, then raced into the living room. Dad and Ben's maces were missing from the hooks up by the door. Grabbing my own weapon, I kicked the door shut with my heel and ran for the barn. Already saddled, the Turk waited in the yard, nose lifted high and ears aimed northward. What's going on? I panted. Skinner's, at the camp. Vandermeer managed to get a call out to Javier before her phone went dead. I darted inside the barn. Ben saddled Izzy, his face pale in the glare of the single bulb above the saddle racks. Nearby, Dad tacked up Elsid for me, his hands moving at warp speed and lips pressed in a razor-thin line. I hurried to take over. Please let them be okay. Let Perry be okay. My stomach twisted tighter and tighter with every second. For the last week, I had ridden with her almost every day, and every time Dad and Ben trailed along behind, pretending to watch over me sorry, I got lost. As they hunted for any signs of Skinner's. And every day they came up with a big old bucket of nothing, not even a fly, and even with the whole public not a loud thing. Albury smirked and waved each time he saw my father or brother riding around the perimeter of the valley. I marveled that Dad didn't punch the guy, but in spite of the Skinnerlessness, I was having the best summer of my life hanging out with Perry. I could talk with her about everything. Well, just about everything. I think she felt the same way about me. Get me out of here, Perry said yesterday as I rode up to her trailer mounted on Izzy. Next to me, Elsid trotted along with an empty saddle, stirrups swaying. Dad was already a small figure on horseback, trotting toward the valley's western wall. Uh-oh, what happened? Her face was a thunderstorm. She hopped off the aluminum steps of the trailer. Mom's driving me insane. If she could, she'd bubble wrap me and stick me in a closet for safekeeping. Still won't let you leave camp by yourself? And thank you, Dr. Vandermeer. Heck, she barely lets me go with you. It's like she's trying from Helicopter Mother of the Year, subcategory Western region adopted child families with less than four members. Fuming, she mounted El Cid. We headed east toward the far side of the valley and away from the dig site. The dust rising from beneath the horses. Hooves tasted like June, cinnamony with a metallic whiff. For a while we rode in silence. At least you got your mom, although Dad's okay. And Ben, when he's not being a Jack Hindquarters. I'll trade you. Your mom? Sure, you can have Turk. Tempting, she sighed. It's not like I hate my mom. I love her. It's just that she tries too hard, you know? Yeah, but you don't have a brother or sister who fights with her on a regular basis about the stupidest things in the world. I noticed, El said, swiveling his ears, listening. So did Izzy. I glanced over. Is that offer to trade still open? We laughed. So did the horses, chuffing in low grunts. Perry must have noticed, because she had a way of pursing her mouth to one side when she's thinking about something or concentrating. You know what, Matt? Maybe our families seem messed up more to us than to the rest of the world. Both horses snorted in agreement, tossing their heads. Perry beamed. Looks like they understand me. Well, wouldn't it be cool if they really could talk, like in books, where the characters, dragons, or wolves speak to them? Cool. Yeah. Through the saddle, I felt Izzy swell from suppressed laughter. Now, as I fumbled with the stallion's kink in the semi-dark of the barn, I wished I had told her the truth. I'd give anything, Elsa said, to tell you that it'd be all right. I know. I finished up buckling the straps, then leaned against him for a moment, soaking up his warmth. The iron mace heavy and cold in my hands. Okay, let's do this. I pushed away and climbed into the saddle. My brother mounted too. Speaking of Izzy in a low voice. Then he straightened and pointed his mace at me. Watch yourself. Stick with El Cid no matter what, okay? To my astonishment, he leaned over and gave me one rough-armed hug. Dad was waiting for me outside. He nodded once, then said, "Turk." The black stallion whirled around in 2 strides. He was gone, swallowed up by the night. Side by side, Izzy and Nelson raced after him. We galloped around the hump and down the road, the horses picking up speed on the straightaway. Ahead of us, the lights of Hufferano shone in the darkness. The land rolled beneath Elsid's hooves. I rose and bounced in the stirrups, trying to ride as light as I could. The night air whistled in my ears. It seemed like hours since I had left my warm bed. The whistling rose to a shriek. Was it wind? Was a storm coming? I looked up. Clear night, with the stars so thick they covered the sky in blobs of light. The shrieks turned into howls. Skinner howls. I must beg Elsa to take me home again. Then I wanted to knock myself on the head with my mace for even thinking that. Those people need you. Perry needs you. You want to be a hunter like Dad? Well, here's your chance. We'd reached the intersection, Dad still in lead, and Ben right on his heels. Ribs heaving, Elsid took up the rear. Ahead of us, the mesa was a giant castle, black against the stars. The roar of engines filled the night. Vehicles raced toward us, the headlights slicing the dark as they sorry, along the dirt road. The first one blasted its horn and zoomed past. 2 more followed in a tight row, bumpers to fenders. I coughed, choking on dust. Albert's Land Rover appeared. Dad urged Turk in front of it. The stallion planted himself in the middle of the road, legs apart and head lifted in a surreal game of chicken. The SUV kept coming. "Dad!" I yelled. "He's not stopping. Get out of the way." "Turk, stand your ground." At the last second, the vehicle swerved, its engines complaining as it angled off the road into the tall grass. I spotted Albert at the wheel. Workers and scientists packed the other seats. A woman powered down her window. "Lewis!" Her face was stretched in terror. She gestured frantically. "That chest! Something! Some creature!" she yelled as they bounced past us. Liz and Perry. They're trapped, and Albert gunned the motor. The rest of her wounds were lost. The rest of her words were lost. The war horses lowered their heads and ran. We blasted through the gate. The corridor was as dark as the inside of my closet where monsters used to live until I was old enough to learn that they existed outside my house. Elsa took the slope so fast I swore his hooves never touched the ground until halfway down. Hitting the valley floor with a grunt, the horses gathered their legs beneath them and sped up. Electric lanterns scattered around the camp were smudges of light. Slowing, we dropped to a jog and picked our way through the camp. The only sound was the heavy breathing of the horses. Tents hung in shreds. Several tables were knocked over, their equipment scattered across the ground. A lone work boot, smoldered in the dying campfire. The reek of burning leather made my eyes water. I glanced at Ben riding next to me. I didn't see any bodies. Me neither. He looked as relieved as I felt. Guess everyone made it out in time, except Perry and her mom. Guilt knifed me in the gut. Why didn't I warn her about the Skinners? If she's dead, it's my fault. Elsid slammed to a stop, body tight as a drum. He stared into the shadow of Albury's trailer. "Javier, look. Madre de Dios." What? Doesn't that mean, like, mom of 2? Well, okay. I'm probably not right. Dad leaped from Turk's back and knelt down. "Please don't let it be Perry." Elsid and I inched closer. "Oh no," I whispered. "The coffer." I squatted on the ground. The lid twisted and mangled and wide open. Dad prodded it with his mace. Iron kinked on iron. How did they find it? I leaned over. Skinner tracks, too. Too many to count. Led away in all directions. The cave's practically impossible to discover. Not impossible enough. Turk curled his lips. Well, those idiots got what they deserved. How can you say such a thing? Dad whirled on him, fists clenched. For a split second, I thought he was going to punch Turk right between the nostrils. No one deserves that kind of death, especially not innocent. A scream rent the darkness. A woman's scream. "From the north," as he shouted. She and Ben wheeled around, not bothering with stirrups. Dad grabbed the horn and vaulted into the saddle. Turk was at a dead run even as my father hit leather. Another scream, this time a girl's. A massive boulder, like a giant's bald head, loomed ahead in the darkness. The same rock where Albert had climbed to safety. It seemed like 100 years ago. 2 figures crouched on top, silhouette against the stars. Skinners danced around the base, snarling and howling and tripping over each other. The hum of flies filled the night. Rearing up on its hind legs. One of the creatures began clawing its way up the rough surface. The taller of the two figures raised a club-like object and swung. With a yelp, the Skinner fell back. Ben, you and I will draw the pack away, Dad shouted. Elsid, you and Matt get them out of here. Head for the gate. He can't carry three, I protested, and run all the way back. Plus, I don't want us to split up. Watch me, Elsid panted. He only had he only has to reach the gate. Ben and I will fight clear and catch up. Dad raised his mace. Get ready, Elsid shouted. Get ready. Elsid slowed. A sliver of my brain wondered why he was going along with such a stupid plan. Turk and Izzy rocketed forward, racing neck and neck. The howls grew louder. Santiago! Turk smashed into the pack, sending Skinners flying into the air, their paws clawing. Stomping and kicking, he smashed one creature after another under his massive hooves. Dad's mace rose and fell in a blinding speed. Globs of wet meat splattered everywhere. On Izzy's back, Ben clung to the horn as he swung his weapon into a scything? Sorry, action. Then we were past. Elsid skidded around the far side of the boulder, then slid to a halt, flying. Quickly now! I stood in the stirrups and called out, Perry, it's me! Perry's face appeared above my head. Matt? Hurry! I reached my hand up. Matt, what on earth? Dr. Vandermeer appeared, holding a baseball bat. You need to get out of here. There's wolves or rabid dogs or... I know. My dad and brother are drawing them off. You and Perry need to come with me. I could tell Dr. Vandermeer was seconds away from full-out panic mode. I knew exactly how she felt. We're not leaving this rock. Elsid and I will take you to the ranch. It's safe there. At that moment, I heard Dad and Ben gallop away. Had the Skinners followed? I strained to hear as the snarls faded. An odd quiet filled the night. Listen, they're gone. Bold words. Wished I believed them. I couldn't stop myself from visualizing Skinners hiding on the other side of the boulder. Knock it off. Don't think about that. Just get them out of here. Dr. Vandermeer, we really need to move. Like right now. Mom, Perry pushed at her mother. Go with Matt. We can trust him. It's too dangerous. She grabbed her daughter's arms. No, stay here. Until what? Help arrives? Mom, this is our help. She shook loose. Follow me. She scooted down the rock on her bottom, then jumped the last few yards and landed with an oomph. Dr. Vandermeer trailed behind, moving slowly with one hand. The other hand still held the bat. I gritted my teeth and fought the urge to snatch it from her and fling it away. It won't do you any good, I wanted to scream. The whole time Elsid's ears swiveled around. I wanted so badly to ask him if he heard anything, or if I was doing this whole rescue thing right. Weird, not to be able to talk with my best friend when I needed it most. Come on, Mom, Perry hissed. Just jump. As soon as the woman's feet touched the ground, I dismounted and helped her into the saddle. Perry climbed up behind her. Then I backed away, Neil shaking at what I was about to do. Change of plan, Elsid. Get them out of here. I'm staying. I'll hide up on top of this rock and catch a ride with Dad or Ben. And I bet Dr. Vandermeer will let me borrow her bat. Sure. Hoped I sure. Hoped I sounded braver than I felt. Dr. Vandermeer looked around, her hands white-knuckled on the saddle horn. Who are you talking to? Elsid snorted. We don't have time for a mutiny, Matt. Mount up now. Not going to happen. I took another step back. You'll never make it out with three. You do realize that since I'll not leave you behind, you're ruining any chance of getting Perry and her mother to safety, perhaps even consigning them to death by Skinner. A gasp from Perry. Both mother and daughter were identical expressions, wide-eyed and mouths hanging from open disbelief. How do I explain? I felt time galloping away. Just tell them already and step on it. Okay, this is going to sound nuts. I paused, then blurted out. The horse is going to talk. A long silence. Thors can talk, Harry said. What does that mean? Okay, maybe I said it too fast. Elsid swung his head around and fixed them with an eye. What Matt said, albeit a bit awkwardly, is that we war horses have the gift of human speech and human intelligence, although overlaid with the equine instinct and worldview. Mouth even wider than before, Perry stared down at me. I could just make out her expression in the darkness. Her lips moved, a sharp inhale. No freaking way, she breathed. How? It's a long story, and Matt will explain everything once we're safe, Elsid flattened his ears. All of us. Right, Mateo? Fine. Ignoring Elsid's gloat of victory, I stepped on up on a rock, then squeezed in behind Perry. I felt like I was about to shoot off the grade's hind end. Alice had started around the boulder, nose held high. He snorted in disgust. Ugh, this whole area still reeks of those creatures. Amazing how long the stench lasts, and a Skinner burst from the shadows. It hurled itself at Elsid, jaws snapping like castanets? I have no idea. The stallion staggered from the impact. His back leg buckled. I fell backward, gasping at the air. For a split second, Perry's fingers gripped mine, then tore loose. With a sickening whump, I hit the ground. Body vibrating from the impact, I lay spread eagled in the dirt, clutching my mace. A voice screamed in my head and ordered me to move my worthless self. Breathless, I rolled over and scrambled to my feet, swatting at the flies bombarding me. The creature crouched a few feet away. It bared its teeth. I bared mine right back and raised my weapon. Well, come on, show me what you got, Chucky Chuck Roast. What the heck? A trumpeting nigh. Elsa threw himself between me and the Skinner. Perry yelled at her mother to hold on, hold on. The monster darted behind and dived low, trying for the stallion's tendon. Fury erupted in my chest. Santiago! I yelled. For just a moment, I swore I heard my father's voice. Planting my feet, I swung. The mace's iron weight caught the Skinner on the side of its jaw. Chunks of teeth and bones and other nasty bits exploded like sharpenel? Sorry. The headless creature flew through the air and slammed against the boulder. A second later, it vanished with a pop. You guys okay? I gasped, my body trembling from the adrenaline rush. Dr. Vandermeer nodded. Perry? She gave a thumbs up. She gave me a thumbs up. Elsa flexed a hind leg a few times. We need to go now. I scrambled onto his back, struggling to keep my seat, both from Elsid's jarring trot and from sitting particularly on the base of the stallion's tail. I craned my neck across the valley. Dark shapes ran back and forth. A faint shout from Ben. Turk screamed a challenge. They're still fighting. They're still alive. I led myself a tiny flame of hope. But for how long? Passing through the camp, we slowed to a walk. Dr. Brandomir kept glancing around. Was she looking for Body too? It's okay, I said before she asked. I think everyone made it out in time. At a lope, we headed toward the gate. With every other stride, I looked back. Come on, Dad. Ben, you said you'd catch up. Not to fret, Matt, Elsid said, one ear pointed behind. They're approaching. He halted with a sigh. I heard them before I saw them. The kettle drum of hoofbeats. Then two mounted figures raced up. Even before Turk skidded to a halt, my father leaped out of the saddle. They are right behind us, Dad gasped. Liz, you'll ride with me. Perry? He plucked her off the gray and tossed her up onto Izzy. Go with Ben. Dr. Vandermeer slid down awkwardly, legs shaking. Dad helped her onto Turk, then flung himself up behind her. I scooted into the vacant saddle. Just in time, the pack burst out of the night, eyes popping and venom dripping from every fang. Flee! Dad roared. Jeez, this is a long chapter. The steeds galloped flat out, nostrils wide and necks stretched. Chariot horses in the race of their lives. Our lives. Where are we going? Dr. Brantamere shouted at Dad. Our ranch. You'll be safe there. But those things will follow us. They cannot escape the maze. Trust me, Liz. We charged up the slope and into the corridor's inky blackness. I rode blind, trusting Elsid's better vision. Echoes rebound from the wall to wall. A new worry perched on my shoulder and whispered in my ear. Something's wrong with Elsid. I had ridden the stallion almost every day of my life. I knew every notch of his stride, and his stride was off. Big time. I leaned forward. Elsid. He just shook his head and kept running. Final sprint. We broke out in a narrow opening and into the wide open range. Blowing hard, the war horses stumbled to a walk. I swiveled around and glanced back. Sure hope those meat mutts learned their lesson last time. The Skinners milled around, keeping plenty clear of the gate's outer boundary. After a final challenge of bared fangs, they slunk away. I let out a shanky breath. Man, I hate those things. Ben held his mace up and studied it. It's going to take me forever to dig it out. Dig what out? Perry asked. Skinner. Out of the sigils? He held the weapon out to her. See? She leaned away. I believe you. We turned our noses for home. The horses walked with lower heads and dragging hooves, all of them filthy with sweat and dust and leftover monster mash. I swung off Elsid and paced beside him. Worry poked me with every step. I laid my hand on his wet neck. What's wrong? Why do you keep asking? You're limping, and you sound like an anti-smoking commercial. I simply wrenched my knee kicking that last Skinner, and you'd be a tad breathless if you just sprinted while carrying 3 people. Not that I couldn't do it again. He added hastily. A little rest is all I need. He lowered his head and plodded along. When we reached the ranch, I wanted to fall down and hug the dirt. Maybe lay there and sleep for a couple of days. Dad escorted Dr. Vandermeer and Perry up the porch steps, as Ben and I trailed the horses inside the barn. While Turk took first turn at the water barrel, my brother and I saw to Izzy and El Cid. I pulled off his saddle and halter, then carried them over to the wreck. Over my shoulder, I spotted Ben dishing out grain for Izzy. You want something to eat too? I asked. Oats? Maybe with extra molasses? Or an apple? I'm not hungry. Water would be nice, though, as Turk seems determined to hug the barrel. I filled the bucket from the hose and attached it to the outside spigot and carried it over, sloshing water on my jeans. Here you go. He drank deeply, then raised his head with a sigh. Oh, that's better. Water dripped from his chin. Are Perry and her mother all right? I glanced through the barn doors toward our house. Outside of being in shock, I guess so. Dad's taking care of them. Good. I'll I'll rest a bit, then perhaps take you up on the offer of oats and molasses in the morning. Let me wipe you down before everything hardens. Your coat's a mess. Gore and muck streaked his chest and belly and legs. I'd rather just rest in peace if you don't mind. You can fuss over me later. When I started to protest, he nudged me toward the house with his nose. Ben's already inside. Go join your family. Odd statement. Your family too, you know. I smoothed his forelock. I always will be. He closed his eyes. That's the end of chapter 21, which was really long. Sorry that took like 20 minutes. Thank you for listening. If you liked, please like and subscribe and turn on notifications. And if you have any questions or comments, just put them in the comments. Bye.